Hey friend, please subscribe. 1 second for you. Big deal for me.
She had a whole second life going, and apparently I didn't fit in it. My name's Russell. I'm 48 years old, and I live in a quiet suburb of Phoenix, Arizona. I'd been married to Dana for 12 years. We had a nice house, a couple of dogs, and what I thought was a pretty decent life. I'd been a contractor for 25 years, owning a small but solid HVAC company that kept us comfortable. Dana was in real estate. She did well, not great, but steady enough to contribute. About a year or so back, things started to shift. Dana began pulling away. Late nights became the norm. Always some excuse about a client or a networking event. Her attitude grew cold, distant. She was always traveling for work, which meant quick weekend trips to places like San Diego or Vegas. I tried to talk to her, asked if everything was all right, but she'd just brush me off with a wave of her hand and say I was being paranoid or clingy. I told myself it was just stress from her job, that real estate could be demanding. I told myself a lot of things. One Tuesday night I was sitting on the couch, watching some old movie, and Dana was already asleep in bed. She had left her old iPad on the coffee table. She mostly used it to stream shows in the living room, but sometimes she'd check her social media on it too. I picked it up, thinking I'd put it away, and noticed her Facebook was still logged in. My gut just twisted. It was a feeling I couldn't ignore. My thumb hovered over the screen, and I hesitated for a moment. Then I clicked on her profile. What I saw wasn't her regular page. It was a whole second account, one I'd never known about. The profile picture was of her smiling. But it wasn't the kind of smile I'd seen in years. It was brighter, freer. I started scrolling, my heart pounding in my chest like a drum. There were dozens of pictures. Pictures of her laughing, holding hands with a guy, looking completely different than the reserved woman who shared my bed. Flirty messages filled the feed. Every post, every comment, was a punch to the gut. The guy's name was Corey. He was younger, probably in his late 20s, with a shredded physique and a big, toothy grin. They were everywhere together. At restaurants I'd never been to, on beaches I'd never visited, looking like a couple completely in love. There were comments from other people, friends I didn't recognize, talking about how cute they were together, asking when they were going to tie the knot. My mind raced, trying to put the pieces together. The work trips, the late nights, the sudden disinterest in me. It all clicked into place, a horrifying picture I never wanted to see. I sat there for what felt like hours, the blue light of the iPad reflecting in my eyes, just numb. When Dana finally came out of the bedroom the next morning, stretching and yawning, I didn't even look up. I just held the iPad out to her, open to the secret Facebook page, with Corey's smiling face staring back at her. Her eyes widened for a split second, then narrowed. There was no shock, no apology, no remorse. Instead, a strange calmness settled over her features. She looked at the screen, then at me, then back at the screen. "So, you found it," she said, her voice flat, almost bored. I waited, my breath caught in my throat, expecting some kind of breakdown, some attempt to explain, to deny. But nothing. She just shrugged. "Good," she continued, a slight smirk playing on her lips. "I'm glad you found out. Honestly, it was getting exhausting keeping it all a secret." My jaw dropped. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. She was glad. She actually looked relieved, like a burden had been lifted. My mind reeled. All the quiet nights I spent wondering. All the times I convinced myself I was overthinking. All the hope I held onto that we could fix whatever was wrong between us. It was all for nothing. She wasn't just cheating. She was open about it, almost proud. The casual way she said it, like she was talking about the weather, made my stomach churn. She even went on to boast about Corey, how he was so much more exciting and understood her in ways I never could. It felt like a deliberate jab, a cruel twist of the knife. I just stared at her, the woman I had built a life with, feeling a cold, hollow ache spread through my chest. The betrayal wasn't just in the affair. It was in the complete lack of care, the utter disregard for everything we had shared. I asked Dana straight up if she was cheating, even though I already knew the answer. We were sitting in the living room, the iPad still between us, its screen dark now. I wanted to hear it from her, to see if there was any flicker of regret. "Dana, are you cheating on me? I asked, my voice surprisingly steady. She looked at me, a blank expression on her face. Then she let out a little sigh, like she was bored with the whole conversation. "Russ, you're just not exciting," she said, her tone dripping with disdain. "You're boring. You work with your hands and smell like Freon." My blood ran cold. Freon. That was the smell of my livelihood. The scent of the 40, 50, 60-hour weeks I'd put in for years to build our life, to pay for this house, to make sure she could pursue her real estate dreams. It was the smell of my dedication to us. "Corey makes me feel alive," she continued, oblivious or uncaring of the hurt she was inflicting. "He understands me. He's not predictable." I just stared at her, trying to process the words. Predictable. Boring. The man who worked his tail off so she could have a comfortable life was suddenly the problem. I felt a surge of anger, hot and sudden. "Predictable?" I shot back, my voice rising a little. "I worked 60-hour weeks to pay off our damn house, Dana. I supported you through all your business fails, all those months you didn't make a single commission. I was here being predictable so you could have a roof over your head and food on your plate while you figured yourself out." She just scoffed, rolling her eyes. "That's your choice, Russell. I never asked you to be a martyr." A martyr. The word hung in the air, heavy and insulting. I couldn't believe the audacity, the sheer nerve of her. She was twisting it, making it my fault that I had provided for us, that I had been a reliable partner. It was like she was erasing our entire history, all the sacrifices I had made, all the times I had picked her up when she was down. There was no recognition, no appreciation, just a cold, hard wall of resentment. That same week, I got served. Not by some anonymous process server, but by a guy I knew, a buddy of hers who worked at a different real estate office across town. He came to my house on a Tuesday morning, right as I was about to head out for a job. He looked uncomfortable, avoided my eyes. "Hey, Russ," he mumbled, shoving a thick envelope into my hand. "Dana asked me to drop this off. Said it was important." He practically ran back to his car. I stood there on my driveway, the envelope in my hand, my mind reeling. I knew what it was before I even opened it. Divorce papers. She didn't even have the decency to tell me herself. She just sent a messenger, like I was some homeless guy she wanted to avoid. I went inside, slumped onto the couch, and tore open the envelope. The words swam before my eyes. Petition for dissolution of marriage. I scanned through it, my heart sinking further with each legal term. She was asking for the house, for alimony, for everything. It felt like a punch to the gut, but also, strangely, a sense of clarity. This wasn't just about an affair anymore. This was about her trying to take me for everything I had, to erase me completely from her life. Then, buried deep in the stack of papers, almost an afterthought, was a copy of our prenuptial agreement. We'd signed it 12 years ago, at her insistence, actually. Her family had some money, and her dad was a lawyer who was really big on legal protections for his kids. I hadn't really paid much attention to it back then, just signed where they told me to. I remembered a vague mention of protecting her real estate business if things went south, which seemed fair enough at the time. I started rereading it, my eyes scanning the dense legal jargon, looking for the part about her business. I almost missed it. It was tucked away in a paragraph near the end, a clause I had completely forgotten about. A fault clause. It stated very clearly that if either party committed adultery, the other party would be entitled to 50% of any business or professional practice owned by the cheating spouse. 50% of her firm. My breath hitched. Dana had forgotten about it. Or more likely, she never thought I'd actually find out about her cheating, or that I'd be able to prove it. She probably thought I was too dumb to even remember we had a prenup, let alone understand its implications. But I had proof, concrete, undeniable proof, sitting right there on that old iPad. And this prenup, the one she probably thought was just a dusty old document, suddenly became a weapon. A very powerful weapon. It wasn't just about protecting myself anymore. It was about making sure she faced the consequences of her actions. This wasn't just some legal battle. It was a fight for what was right. And for the first time in days, I felt a surge of something other than despair. A grim, determined hope. The prenup. Dana had added that fault clause herself. Her dad, being a lawyer, must have put her up to it. She probably thought in her warped mind that I'd be the one to screw up, that I'd be the one who ended up cheating. She always had this way of projecting her own bad behavior onto other people. The irony wasn't lost on me. Joke's on her. The clause stated, black and white, that if either of us committed adultery, the innocent party would get half of the cheating spouse's business. In this case, half of Dana's real estate firm. The firm she had worked so hard to build, the one she bragged about constantly. I wasted no time. I wasn't interested in games, in dragging this out, in emotional theatrics. I just wanted it clean and fast. I called the number for her lawyer that was listed on the divorce papers. His name was Jason Miller. I told his assistant I needed to arrange a meeting, that it was urgent and regarding the divorce filing. She tried to schedule me for a week out, but I insisted. I said I had some information that would be very beneficial to his client's understanding of the situation. That seemed to get her attention. She squeezed me in for the next morning. I showed up early to Jason's office, about 15 minutes before our scheduled time. It was a fancy building downtown, glass and steel, way different from my humble HVAC shop. The receptionist looked a little surprised to see me, a guy in jeans and a polo shirt sitting in their plush waiting area. When Jason finally came out to greet me, he was a tall, sharp-looking guy in a tailored suit, probably in his late 40s. He looked a little confused when he saw me. "Russell?" he asked, extending a hand tentatively. "You're Dana's husband?" I shook his hand firmly. "That's me." He frowned slightly, his eyes doing a quick scan of my attire. "She said you were a mechanic or something." His tone wasn't rude, just genuinely perplexed. It was clear Dana had painted a certain picture of me for her lawyer, probably someone she thought he could easily dismiss. Some uneducated blue-collar schmo who wouldn't know a legal document from a grocery list. I just gave him a tight smile. HVAC contractor. Own my own business. Been doing it for 25 years. He ushered me into his office, a spacious room with a huge desk and a view of the city. We sat across from each other. He opened a file, pulling out Dana's divorce petition. "So what is it you wanted to discuss, Russell?" "Dana has already made her intentions clear regarding the separation of assets." He was confident, almost dismissive, like this was just another open and shut case where the husband was going to roll over. I leaned forward, placing a thick manila envelope on his desk. "Jason, before we talk about asset separation, I think there's something Dana might have forgotten to mention to you." He raised an eyebrow, a hint of impatience in his eyes. "Oh?" "The prenup," I said, my voice calm and steady. His expression didn't change at first, then a flicker, a slight tightening around his eyes. "The prenuptial agreement?" he repeated slowly, as if testing the words. "I don't have a copy of that in her file. She didn't indicate there was one." "That's because she probably hoped you wouldn't need to know about it," I replied, pushing the envelope a little closer to him. "But it's very real and very binding." I pulled out my copy and slid it across the desk to him. "And I think you'll find Clause 7, subsection B, particularly interesting." He picked up the document, his brow furrowing as he started to read. I watched his face carefully. The slight widening of his eyes as he found the section, the subtle clenching of his jaw. He probably assumed it was just some standard asset protection clause. But then he read it again, and his professional composure started to crack. The fault clause. His eyes darted up to meet mine, a mixture of surprise and dawning comprehension. Jason wasn't prepared for a guy who knew his way around contracts and consequences. He was clearly expecting a quick, easy case, a wife who wanted out, and a husband who would just accept whatever crumbs she threw his way. Instead, he was facing a man who had done his homework, who knew the law, and who had a very powerful piece of paper on his side. He put the prenup down slowly on his desk. "This clause is quite specific." His voice was lower now, a hint of something like dread in it. "It states that if either party commits adultery..." He trailed off, looking at me with a new, much more serious expression. "That's right," I said, crossing my arms, "and I have irrefutable proof of Dana's infidelity. Dates, times, names, pictures, messages. A whole second life she's been living for the past year." His face went pale. It was clear as day. Dana had never told her lawyer about the prenup or the cheating. She had walked into his office, probably spun him a tale about me being an emotionally distant, boring husband, and told him she wanted out, and wanted everything. She had completely omitted the one crucial detail that would sink her entire case. Jason, a sharp lawyer, understood instantly the monumental screw-up his client had made. He was stuck. He had a case built on lies, and I had the truth and the law firmly on my side. He didn't say anything for a long moment, just stared at the prenup, then at me, then back at the document. The silence in the room was heavy, thick with the weight of Dana's deception and its impending consequences. Jason asked for proof. I knew he would. It was his job. I reached into my manila envelope and pulled out a stack of printouts. There were screenshots of Dana's secret Facebook profile, pages and pages of her posts, photos of her and Corey together, flirty comments, messages. I had even managed to find some archived flight details from her work trips that showed she was flying to places where Corey lived or was vacationing. I laid them out on his huge, polished desk, one by one. Timestamps, clear photos, damning conversations, everything. He flipped through them, his usual confident demeanor completely gone. His face, which had been so composed moments before, now registered shock, then disbelief, then a growing sense of horror. It was like he was watching a car crash in slow motion, unable to look away. He stopped at a photo of Dana and Corey on a beach, both of them beaming, looking like they didn't have a care in the world. This was taken, I knew, while I was at home, working late, thinking she was networking in San Diego. "Russell, I didn't know about any of this," he stammered, his voice a little shaky. He ran a hand through his perfectly coiffed hair. "This changes everything." "That's your client's problem," I said, my voice cold, devoid of emotion. I wasn't there to make friends or to make him feel better. I'm just here to make sure this gets done. According to the prenup. He looked up at me, his eyes wide. "But this is substantial. The implications for her business." 50%, I stated simply. "That's what the prenup says. Half of her firm." He sighed deeply, leaning back in his chair. She didn't disclose any of this. Not the prenup, not the affair." He looked genuinely blindsided, which in a way made me feel a grim satisfaction. Dana didn't just lie to me. She lied to her own legal counsel, completely undermining her position. "My point is this," I continued, leaning forward. "I'm not looking for a drawn-out court battle. I want this divorce finalized quickly, and I want the terms of the prenup upheld. If Dana tries to drag this out, if she tries to fight it, I will go public with all of this proof. Every single screenshot, every photo, every message. I will release it to every major real estate publication in Arizona, to every local news outlet, to every single one of her colleagues and clients." His eyes snapped open wider. He knew. He knew exactly what that would mean for her. In the cutthroat world of real estate, reputation was everything. Dana prided herself on being a successful, trustworthy agent. If word got out that she was not only a cheat but also tried to hide a binding prenup and defraud her husband, her brokerage would eat her alive. Her clients would abandon her. Her colleagues would ostracize her. Her business, the one she cherished so much, would be ruined, probably beyond repair. "I don't need to fight this in court, Jason," I stated calmly, watching the realization dawn on his face. She'd lose in reputation alone. No one would want to work with her, buy from her, or sell for her. It would be professional suicide. He was silent for a long moment, staring at the evidence spread across his desk. Then he slowly gathered the papers, his movements deliberate. "Russell," he began, his voice low. "I need to consult with Dana immediately. This is a significant development." He picked up his phone, then hesitated. He looked at me, a troubled expression on his face. "Frankly, I'm not sure I can continue to represent her with this omission of material facts." It wasn't a direct statement that he was dropping her, but the hint was clear. He was a professional. He knew that taking a case where his client had deliberately lied to him, and where the evidence against her was so overwhelming and publicly damaging, was a professional risk he likely wasn't willing to take. He hinted that he wouldn't represent her anymore. The queen of manipulation, it seemed, had finally outmaneuvered herself. I just nodded, a small, grim smile playing on my lips. My work here was done. For now. Dana started calling after Jason dropped her. My phone rang off the hook for a solid day. I let it go to voicemail. Her messages were a mix of rage and disbelief, evolving quickly into desperate pleas. "You sabotaged me, Russell!" she screamed in one message, her voice hoarse with fury. "You made me look like a fool in front of my own lawyer! How could you do this?" Another one came through a few hours later, a little softer, a little more desperate. "You don't understand what you're doing to my career. This is my life. Why are you so vindictive?" I finally picked up on the third day, after her calls had slowed down, indicating she might be ready to actually listen. "Hello, Dana," I said, my voice flat. "Russell, what did you tell Jason? He dropped me. He said he couldn't represent me anymore. You ruined everything." "No, Dana," I corrected her calmly. "I didn't ruin anything. You did that yourself when you brought your boyfriend to our anniversary party last year and told folks he was your coworker. When you had a secret life going on behind my back for a year. When you lied to your own lawyer. You ruined everything yourself." There was a stunned silence on her end. She clearly hadn't expected me to be so direct, so factual. She usually relied on me being too passive to confront her head-on. She started running around trying to get a new lawyer, but no one wanted to go up against me with the stack of proof I had. Jason, I assume, had put out feelers to other firms, or word had simply spread through the legal community in Phoenix. Lawyers don't like taking on cases that are guaranteed to lose, especially when the potential for public humiliation is so high. I heard through the grapevine that she approached 3 or 4 big firms, and they all politely but firmly declined. Her calls to their offices were not returned. The truth, combined with the threat of public exposure, was a powerful deterrent. And her golden boy, Corey? He ghosted her after finding out she'd lose half her company. I heard that from a mutual acquaintance, someone who still occasionally talked to Dana. Apparently, the moment he heard the word prenup and 50% of her business, he vanished. No more flirty texts, no more romantic getaways. The guy who made her feel alive didn't want anything to do with her when her financial life was crumbling. Real, loyal guy. I almost laughed. He wasn't interested in a strong, independent woman. He was interested in a woman with a successful business and extra cash for fun. When that vanished, so did he. She was losing her grip. Her professional reputation was circling the drain, her lawyers were abandoning her, and her new lover had bailed. The queen of manipulation was out of lawyers and out of moves. I felt no pity, only a quiet sense of justice. Then, one morning, completely unannounced, Dana showed up at my house. I was having my usual Saturday morning coffee on the porch, enjoying the quiet. My heart skipped a beat, but I forced myself to stay calm, to not give her the satisfaction of seeing me rattled. She pulled up in her Mercedes looking disheveled, her eyes red-rimmed like she hadn't slept. She got out of the car, her movements slow and hesitant, and walked towards my porch. She looked utterly defeated, a sight I honestly thought I'd never see. She came by the house at 8 a.m., right as I was having coffee on the porch. The sun was just starting to get hot, and the neighborhood was still quiet. I saw her car pull up, a familiar white Mercedes. My stomach clenched, but I kept my face neutral. She got out, looking tired, and a little desperate, not her usual perfectly put-together self. "Russell," she said, her voice soft, almost a whisper. She tried that doe-eyed look, the one she used to get me to agree to things years ago. "Can we talk?" I just took a slow sip of my coffee, looking out at my front yard, then turned my head to her, a small, mirthless laugh escaping my lips. "What's there to talk about, Dana? Seems like we've said everything that needed to be said." She walked closer to the porch steps, wringing her hands. "Please, Russell, just a few minutes." I sighed, setting my mug down. "All right, say your piece." She started with the whole "we had good years" angle. "Russ, we had so many good times, didn't we? 12 years. That's a long time. We built a life together." Her voice was laced with a fake nostalgia that made my skin crawl. She was trying to pull on old heartstrings that had long since been severed. "Yeah, we did," I agreed, my voice flat. And then you decided to toss it all away for some gym rat. Her face flinched, but she pressed on, ignoring my jab. Please, Russell, don't do this. Don't take the firm. Her voice cracked, and she finally dropped the act. The fake sincerity vanished, replaced by raw desperation. I've worked too hard for it. My whole life is wrapped up in that business. You can't just take half of it. I stood up, walked to the edge of the porch, and looked down at her. You worked hard? You want to talk about hard work, Dana? My voice was calm, but there was an edge of steel to it. I paid the mortgage for 6 years straight while you were figuring out your career. I worked 70-hour weeks sometimes to keep my business afloat so we could have a solid foundation. I was the one fixing air conditioners in 110-degree heat while you were going to networking lunches and flying off to Vegas every other month. Her eyes narrowed slightly, the victim act momentarily forgotten. That was your choice. I told you. I never asked you to be a martyr. And you were wrong, I retorted. I was being a partner. I was building a future for us. You were just building a future for yourself. And apparently, someone else. She was quiet for a moment. Then she looked up at me, her eyes shimmering with what looked like real tears this time. Please, Russell. Is there anything I can do? Anything at all? I'll make it up to you. I'll leave Corey. I swear, it's over. I ended it. I want to try again, Russ. For us. My jaw almost dropped. She was offering to take me back. The woman who called me boring, who bragged about her lover, who tried to steal everything from me, was now offering reconciliation, as if our marriage was just a convenient bargaining chip to save her business. She wasn't sorry for hurting me. She was just trying to save herself. This wasn't about our shared history or any lingering affection. It was about damage control, pure and simple. You think I'd come back to you after all that? I asked, shaking my head slowly. After you ripped my heart out, threw it on the floor, and stomped on it? After you lied to me for a year, then lied to your own lawyer? After you tried to take me for every last dime? No, Dana. This is your karma. You made your bed. Now you get to lie in it. I could see the exact moment the hope died in her eyes. The desperation turned to a cold, hard anger. You think I'd come back to you after all that? I asked again, my voice ringing with a finality that seemed to hit her like a physical blow. Nah. This is your karma, Dana. You wanted a different life, a more exciting life. Well, this is it. Her face crumpled. She started crying, really crying this time, not the fake sniffles from earlier. Tears streamed down her face, mascara smudging around her eyes. Real tears or not, I didn't care. It felt hollow, too late to matter. Please, Russell, she choked out, her voice ragged. Don't do this. Don't take my business. I'll lose everything. I just looked at her, my heart feeling like a cold, hard stone in my chest. You should have thought about that before you decided to build a second life with another man, I said, my voice steady. We're going through with the prenup. You wanted this life? Live it. I didn't wait for her to respond. I just turned and walked off the porch, heading towards the front door. She stood there for a moment, sobbing quietly. Then she started to follow me. I opened the door, stepped inside, and waited. When she reached the doorway, her hand outstretched as if to touch me, I stopped her. Goodbye, Dana, I said, looking her directly in the eye, my voice devoid of emotion. Then, without another word, I closed the door behind her. I heard her choked sob from the other side, followed by the sound of her footsteps retreating down the walk. I locked the deadbolt, then walked straight to my phone, pulled up her contact, and blocked her number. I didn't want to hear from her ever again. Later that week, her assistant, a timid young woman named Chloe, called my legal representative. I had hired a guy, a quiet but sharp lawyer named Ben, to handle the legal end of things. He was good, efficient, and didn't waste time on emotional drama. Chloe called to arrange a buyout offer for my share of the firm. Ben relayed the message to me. Dana was offering a pittance, a fraction of what half her company was actually worth. She clearly didn't have the money, not even close. She was scrambling, trying to get loans, but with the news of her impending loss circulating, no bank would touch her. Her business, while profitable, didn't have that kind of liquid cash laying around. The only way she could have bought me out was to sell her share to someone else, and frankly, who would want to buy a business in a fire sale with a reputation like hers? She lost her business, her lover, her reputation, and couldn't stop it. The legal process moved quickly after that. Ben took care of everything. Within a couple of months, the divorce was final, and the prenup was enforced. I was now the proud owner of 50% of Dana's real estate firm. I didn't want to run a real estate business. My passion was HVAC. So I appointed a manager, a seasoned professional I found through a business contact, to run my share. His name was Robert, and he was sharp, experienced, and very enthusiastic about the challenge. He'd report directly to me, and his job was to make sure my half was profitable and well managed. It felt like the weight of the world had been lifted off my shoulders. The anger was still there, a low hum beneath the surface, but it was overshadowed by a sense of calm, of justice served. Dana had tried to destroy me, to take everything, but in the end, her own actions had come back to bite her. Hard. I never looked back. The old house, the one Dana and I shared, held too many memories, too much bad energy. I decided to rent it out. It was a good income stream, and it allowed me to make a clean break. I bought a new place outside of Phoenix, about 30 miles west, in a smaller town called Buckeye. It was smaller than the old place, but it was nicer, more modern, and had a big workshop where I could tinker with my HVAC equipment. It felt good to have a fresh start in a place that was truly mine, untainted by the past. My HVAC company was doing better than ever. The demand for cooling in Arizona never stopped, and I had built a solid reputation over the years. I even hired a couple more technicians, which freed up some of my time. The half of Dana's firm that I now owned was thriving under Robert's management. He was a shrewd businessman, and he ran it lean and efficiently. He cut out a lot of the unnecessary expenses Dana had been indulging in, the lavish office parties, the expensive marketing campaigns that didn't really pay off. He focused on core business, good agents, and client satisfaction. Within 6 months, my half of the firm was making more profit than the whole firm had made under Dana's management. It was a sweet, silent victory. I occasionally got reports from Robert, and he was making good progress, even expanding into new areas. Dana, on the other hand, was not doing so well. I heard bits and pieces through the grapevine, unavoidable in a relatively close-knit professional community. She ended up having to sell her remaining 50% of the firm for a fraction of what it was worth, just to pay off some mounting debts and legal fees. She couldn't afford the old house anymore, of course. She ended up renting a small condo in a not-so-nice part of town, far from the upscale lifestyle she was used to. I even heard that Corey, her young, ripped lover, had moved states, probably to get away from the financial fallout and the drama. He had ghosted her completely, proving just how shallow his affections really were. I still saw her name sometimes on old paperwork, or if Robert sent me a legacy report from the firm, but it was just a reminder of what I had dodged, a testament to the fact that good things can come from even the worst betrayals. She thought she was trading up, trading a reliable, hard-working husband for a flashy, exciting lover and a new, unburdened life. Turns out she traded herself down, way down, into the gutter. My firm was thriving. My new life was peaceful and prosperous, and I had the satisfaction of knowing I had handled the betrayal with dignity and strategic precision. Dana, meanwhile, was left picking up the pieces of a life she had shattered herself. It was a harsh lesson, but one she had earned.
YouTube picked this for you. Tap it. Let's see if they guessed right.